Hello, in this video we're going to look at how to create an diagram using the data modeling tool in MySQL Workbench. So when we launch the Workbench, we get to this welcome screen and we're going to hit the data modeler tool, which is the second one here with the tables and relationships. We're going to create a new model and we open up the modeler screen. We're going to be using the default. We can change the name of the default schema, or we can leave it. In this case, we can just leave it. We'll add a diagram, and we're going to look at how to create our ER diagram on this screen. The ER diagram we're going to be using is the one we used in Lab 2. This is the rough ER diagram. If you remember, we had a real estate company, we have sales offices with their ID number, we have employees that work for a sales office, and sales offices list properties, and then we have the owners. And if you remember, when we went through the design process, we had to break the many-to-many relationship we had between properties and owners, and we have created for that purpose weak entity here, property titles, that connects properties with their owner. So we'll have a line here, a record for each of the tuples of property owner. Okay, so once we know what we're trying to model, we'll go back to the Workbench. We're going to start creating the sales offices table, and our toolbar here provides us with some tools, and in particular we're going to be using the ones to insert tables. So that's going to be our first table, and it's going to be called sales offices. It's going to have a primary key that is going to be the ID. Space it out. By default, MySQL Workbench will give us the first variable, the first attribute, that we include. It will give it to us as the primary key and not null. Okay, we'll stop here for a second. We see how this looks like. We have our table, sales offices, and we have the primary key, which is the ID for the sales office. This table, you can always open it up again by double clicking on it. This table also had a second attribute, that was the attribute. So I'm just going to call it sales office location. It's just the county where the office is based, and we're done with this table at the moment. We're going to add a couple more tables. We need the employees table, we need the properties table, and we need the owners table. Okay, so I'm gonna do that before we create any relationship. So this is the employees table. It's gonna have their ID. That's gonna be the primary key, and we'll leave it there for now. We're gonna have a table for the properties. Again, with their ID as the primary key. And we're gonna have another one for the owners. And they'll have their primary key, that is going to be their ID for each of the owners of property. And remember, on our conceptual design, we identified a many-to-many relationship between properties and owners. So we're going to need a bridging entity in between that is going to connect the two tables and get rid of that many-to-many relationship. And we're going to call this table property titles. Okay, we could call it as well something like owner has property, or okay, so just do it like that. And now we're going to create the relationships. Okay, the first relationship is going to be between sales offices and employees. It's a one-to-many, and it's going to be a non-identifying relationship because both entities are strong entities. They exist in their own right. You're going to have data about employees and data about sales offices. They exist within their own right, unlike the property titles that cannot exist if we don't have properties and owners. So to create a one-to-many non-identifying relationship, we use this tool here, and we go to the end of the relationship and then the beginning. So to create a one-to-many non-identifying relationship, we use this tool. With it selected, we go to the end of the relationship and then click on the beginning, and that's going to give us the one-to-many. You see the connection. This foreign key has been created, and this foreign key relates to the ID. You see, we click on the relationship, relates to the ID of the sales office. Now, similarly, we're going to connect the properties with the sales offices, and we're going to have again a one-to-many non-identifying relationship. So we go to the one-to-many non-identifying. We click on the end, the child, and then the parent. So that way we're creating one-to-many relationship. Again, we see how the sales office's ID is the variable, or the attribute, connecting the two, and it becomes a foreign key on the properties table. Now we get into our weak entity, our bridge associated entity that is going to connect the owners with the properties. It's going to be an identifying relationship, and it's going to be one-to-many. So we're going to have a one-to-many relationship between the property titles and the properties, and again between the property titles and the owners. And we see how we're creating here our foreign keys that are connecting the owners and the properties in this bridge entity that we have created in the middle to get rid of the many-to-many relationship. Now, in this example, we had a few more attributes for each of the entities. I'm just going to add one here to employee. So we have employee name. Just add it here. Decide what data type that attribute is going to be, or its domain. In this case, characters, length 45 for the name. And as you see, it gets added here on our list of attributes for this table, and I will just let you add the other attributes that we have for the other entities. Okay, so this is it, and see you in the next video.